Hello, everyone. I am here with Deidre Sirianni, and just a little bit of information before the show starts. Some of you have been asking me how do you sign up to that video site. You just simply click the link that is going to be posted on Facebook, and there will be a login area. It looks like a little head, and you click it and there's login and register, and you can absolutely register. It is for free, and this is not like YouTube, so there will be no annoying ads in any of the content that's there. Everything on there is ad free. There are no cat videos. There's only relevant content for inspired people. Today, I am speaking with Deidre Sirianni, and Deidre is a very special individual. I met Deidre in British Columbia, and she was sitting next to me. And normally speaking, I'm not the kind of person that immediately connects, but this young lady just turned to me, and we just instantly connected and we instantly clicked. I love her energy. What I love about her energy is that there's no distortion in the field, so to speak. She is who she is. And now, what I want to do is let her introduce herself to you before I cut away to one of her promos, which you guys have to see to actually see what I'm talking about. Deidre, introduce yourself.
Oh, what a nice introduction. I'm Deidre, and I'm super excited to be here and jam with you. And David, I like cat videos. I have two cats. One's name is Isis, and one's name is Prince. And it's super funny. I got these cats, a few months ago because I was told that I need to have them in my life because they're supposed to protect my energy. And I was like, okay, that sounds cool. So cat videos, might want to think about throwing some cat videos.
Would you like the cat video popping up in the middle of your meditation?
No, not there, but that's the same cat videos. Don't knock the cat videos. The cats are so cute. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm not really sure exactly what to tell you about myself. I help people wake up to the truth of who they are and who they're meant to be and stay in that center and then make the impact that they're here to make and turn their past traumas, their struggles into their biggest gifts for humanity. And I do that in a lot of different ways, and I'm excited to dive into this conversation with you. And you have the I Believe video, David. I was like, whoa, you're pulling all the things out.
Yeah, I am pulling all the things out. And a little bit more about Deidre. Deidre has been on TED Talks, so the lady knows how to speak and the lady knows her stuff. So right now I'm going to cut away and I'm going to let you see Deidre in action.
Hi, my name is Deidre Sirianni, and I'm an accelerated evolution guide, and I believe in magic. I believe in being that person who's a little bit out there and stands up for what they believe in, regardless of what everyone else thinks. I believe in wearing sparkles sometimes when you climb trees. I believe in magic. I believe that universal laws need to be respected in order to accelerate your own evolution and really take whatever you're working on to that next level. I believe in taking the path of least resistance, and I believe this is where your purpose and everything that you truly desire is. I believe that every single one of us has been brought into this world to fulfill a divine purpose. I believe that the first step of awakening is really about being radically honest with yourself, and that alone can change your entire reality. I believe that every single person that comes to this video and comes to me is ready to level up, ready to step more powerfully into their purpose and mission, and really is here to fulfill that. I believe in having fun and not taking life too seriously. And I believe in making your own rules because we are the co-creators of the universe and we get to make our own rules. I believe that one of the most courageous things you can do is be who you are completely without any kind of filtering system, and by going deep into the areas of healing like trauma. And I believe that addiction, I believe that self-sabotage, I believe that low self-worth, I believe that all of the suffering in the world comes down to unhealed trauma. Unhealed trauma individually, unhealed trauma in our family, unhealed trauma in our culture, And I believe when we go to the root cause of that and we dissolve and integrate our trauma, we not only do that work for ourselves, but we do that for everyone in our family, everyone in our culture, and there's a ripple effect. I believe that it's important to know what you believe in, and it's more important to show up powerfully for that every single day. So my question for you is, are you showing up powerfully every day for what you believe in? Or do you feel like you have these blocks, maybe imaginary, or these habits or addictions and ways of self-sabotaging that is slowing you down from getting yourself out into the world in a bigger way? And if the answer is yes, you do have things in the way, or simply you just want to be upgraded and make a bigger impact and feel even more bliss and synchronicity in life, and you believe in some of the same things that I believe in, I'd love to support you. So welcome to this space, a space where you can do, be, create anything that you want, and really live in your truth, because your truth is your power, and when you speak it, when you live it, you give everyone else permission to do the same. So I invite you to take some time on this page and explore. Feel into the nudges, feel into the pulls. I believe that your body is always giving you the guidance on the next best step of what you need to do. And I believe that when you listen, you are on the right path, and that is the path of least resistance. So sending you lots of love. Again, my name's Deidre Sirianni, and I'm an accelerated evolution guide, and welcome to my world, a place where you can do, be, and create anything that you want. And you can make your own damn rules, because this is it. This is your life. This is your business. And you get to make your own rules. Lots of love. Mwah.
God damn. Deidre, my dear, you can make a powerful video. So, there's so much to unpack there. You said a lot in that video, and we're going to get into the meat of the matter. I will ask you surgical questions, because you know I'm going to ask you surgical questions, right? And let's see, what is your belief in one sentence? Too much to condense.
Deepest belief in one sentence. Deepest belief in one sentence. Well, it's time to wake up to the truth of who you are and who you're meant to be. Always. It's always the time is now. Now is the time.
Excellent. All right. So you said a lot of stuff that you believe in there. Some of the stuff that you said you believed, which stood out to me, is that all the self-sabotage and all the unwanted behavioral patterns are the results of unhealed trauma. So speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, when we have a trauma, it's like a picture that's been frozen in time. It's a moment we haven't been able to fully process and feel. So whatever happens in a moment in time, we have traumas and imprints, which are essentially the same thing. An imprint can be a positive experience or a desired experience where you got a lot of affirmation for something and it really landed in a way. And a trauma is typically like an undesired experience that could have pain or discomfort. So with either of them, there's an experience that we haven't been able to process. And anytime we have an experience that we're unable to process, it kind of gets stuck in our body. It's like taking a photo and nothing moves forward or back. So what happens is we have an image, a thought, a body sensation, emotion, energetics that are frozen in that moment in time because we never processed it. And then as we're going about our regular life, going to the grocery store, dating, working, being in relationship with people, we get triggered by an image, a thought, a body sensation, emotion, or an energy that's similar to the original main event that happened that we weren't able to process. And as a result, our subconscious mind is taking acts of potentially self-betrayal, stepping away from ourselves, numbing, avoiding, reacting in ways that don't serve us because we feel that there's a threat or something isn't safe in the now, even though it came from the past. So when we're able to process fully the trauma, which is some of the work that I do in a very quick and moving forward way, is we're able to allow our body to fully complete that experience so that as we're going about our day and things are happening, we're not going into that quick response of trying to be safe or to numb our pain. So that's where addiction comes in. That's where self-sabotage comes in. That's where all of these behaviors and you could say weeds in your life begin to take over and block you from fully blooming and being who you're meant to be. So I do believe that unhealed trauma is the root cause of all suffering, because when we're able to heal that on a deep level and pull out the roots rather than mowing the lawn, like a lot of ways that we operate, like, oh, it's not a big deal, or I'm going to do this quick fix to avoid feeling that, we're able to actually change the way that we operate at our core, and then we can operate from choice rather than by our default settings. Because if we have trauma that's unhealed, we can be aware of it, but our first reaction and response to it could be drinking alcohol, binge eating, reacting, hiding, avoiding, and doing all of these other acts of self-betrayal and self-sabotage. But when we've actually done the work, we're able to just be like, oh, I used to do that, and it's funny because I'm not doing that anymore. And then from the outside in, people are noticing you're showing up differently. From the inside out, you're not going into contraction and you're taking better care of yourself and your soul, and you're showing up for what you want rather than constantly shrinking and contracting and going back into old ways. So if you're in old ways of being, you're not reaching, let's say, goals that you have, or you're sabotaging relationships, you have addictions, you have ways of being that aren't serving you, and they keep coming up no matter what you're doing on like a mind level, or reading the books, going to the seminars, doing certain things, it's because on a root level something hasn't been completed. And I believe that's unhealed trauma. And when we think of collectively, well, when we think of trauma and imprints, there's separation, there's fear, right? There's an auto response that we do to stay safe. When we think of all of the issues that are going on collectively in the world, it's all because we don't feel safe individually or collectively, which is why we go against each other, we make other people wrong. So if we all were to heal our trauma individually and collectively, we would be in a space of unity consciousness and alignment, because we're not at war with others, because we're no longer at war within ourselves.
Okay, I told you that this lady knew her stuff. So we're gonna get a little bit deeper into this stuff. I've met a lot of coaches who said a lot of things, and they can recite the dictionary of trauma and developmental trauma. But you're not that kind of coach, and that's what struck me about you, actually, Deidre. You're the kind of coach that has actually been through shit and came out of shit. Because whenever people meet you and so on, or what they're gonna see is the visage. Okay, pretty girl, and that's it. But they have no idea who you really are as a human being, and they don't have an idea of your spiritual practice. And that is something that I actually want to bring out here. Okay, because let's just dispel the myth of, oh, she's pretty and she knows stuff, right? Tell the audience exactly how you have patterned and imbibed all of these values that you were speaking about in your own life.
That's a good question. I really believe in soul school. Like, I remember coming down to earth, and not on hallucinogens or anything like that. I remember coming to earth and not wanting to actually be in this life, because I think on a soul level, I was like, man, this is gonna be tough, because I have some stuff to teach, I have some people to relate to. And when I, in my developmental years, I went through a lot of trauma. I, was in a dynamic with someone close to me who had an addiction, and many days going home, I didn't know if this family member would be alive, and that started at a very young age. And so what happened was I started to become this person in school where I was, happy, the happy-go-lucky person on the outside, wanting to make everyone feel good, but on the inside, wanting to hide. So I grew up actually living a dual life, which I believe so many people are living today. It's like, on the outside, everything's great. I'm the, happiest person everyone knows. But on the inside, a lot of unhealed trauma, which are also the access point to our greatest gifts. So as this continued in my life, I got really good at checking things off the list of the person that I thought I should be. I got married, I started a business, I did a lot of things that I was good at. But no matter what I did, I kept reaching these milestones in my life and being like, is this really all there is? Is this what love is supposed to feel like? Is this what success is supposed to feel like? Like, what's going on here? And I didn't know how to close the gap. I didn't know how to honor and listen fully to my intuition. And so I kept chasing things outside of me. And I remember one night when I was 19 years old, my body was screaming at me. And I do believe our body is always communicating to us and always has the answers. And that night, I was in my car and I was driving up to this guy's house and I was dropping him off, and he's like, "Oh, you should come in for a minute." And I was like, "No, I'm good." And everything on the outside seemed fine. Everything seemed totally fine. And I bypassed my own gut. I bypassed my own intuition. I ended up going inside. Well, that evening I was raped. I was pinned down and I was raped within 5 minutes of being in the house. And there was this thing that he said to me at the end of, going through that experience of, "Watch you go tell your friends I raped you." And so trauma, there's so many different layers of trauma. There's comparison trauma. We can compare our trauma to other people. And I'm not bringing this up to be like, "Oh, poor D." I'm happy everything has happened to me because I actually see why it's all happened. And so in that moment, in that dynamic, I started to betray myself on a consistent basis because I believed I did that to myself. Did it even happen? I didn't listen to my intuition, and I started giving my power away. I started giving myself away to other people as I wasn't trusting myself. Because in that moment, before I walked into this person's home, I wasn't actually listening to myself. So I had a lot of shame, body shame, contraction. I started manifesting disease in my body. And what did I do? I got married pretty young because I was craving safety. I married someone who was very solid and consistent, and I thought it was the right thing to do because the outside world was telling me this is what I should do. The outside world is telling me, "Oh, you probably shouldn't talk about what happened because there's not a lot out there that's saying, hey, if this happened to you, it's normal." And so I continued to check things off the list and bypass my intuition and shove these feelings down. And in my marriage, I was, doing all the things that I felt I should do. And I started to get really sick. I manifested 4 different types of autoimmune disease. I had depression to the point of wanting to kill myself. I had regular anxiety attacks. I had chronic pain. But from the outside looking in, everything looked perfect. I looked like, the girl who had it all together. I had all these opportunities. My business was growing. I was, known with what I did. And I wasn't listening to my body, my soul. And it wasn't until I was going through my hair one day, and long mermaid hair at the time, that I was like, "Oh my gosh, something's different." And I grab my phone, I run to the bathroom, I take the phone out on camera, and I see what's happening. And I lost a massive chunk of hair on the top of my head. I had a huge bald spot out of nowhere. And I remember sitting down at my kitchen table that day and knowing that first of all, what's going on with me? Second of all, how do I fix it? How do I cover this up? I need to continue moving on. I need to continue moving forward. Everything's great. The identity I was in. And then I had this voice come out in front of me that said, "If you don't change your life, if you don't start listening, you're going to manifest cancer and die in the next year." I knew that was true because I had all of these other symptoms that had manifested in the last couple of years that the doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. I couldn't fix it. They didn't make any sense. And I knew that something needed to change. And that was the moment that I said yes to my soul. And I went down this path of discovering how to listen to my soul, how to heal my trauma, how to do things in a way where I'm not boxed in and told who to be and how to be. And that's where everything changed for me. And that's what I help people do today. I help people understand how their soul is communicating to them so that they can listen and heal themselves. And within 3 months, I healed myself of all of those diseases. And I also healed my trauma. And I realized that one core trauma, when left undealt with, turns up as micro traumas your entire life. Saying no to something when you want to say yes, not listening to your intuition, all of the things. and it can get you into a location where you may feel like you're living someone else's life, and that's how I felt. So I'm really committed to helping other people, and yeah, just listening to the soul, having courage to say yes to that. And it's okay if the outside world of what you're looking at, it doesn't make any sense, because your soul, your intuition is always right. So that's a long story, but there's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack, but I've had a significant amount of trauma and experiences in my life, and I've continued to show up and heal and shift and learn and see what's going on and what's working and not working, and then realizing that it's not about telling someone who to be or how to be or what to believe. It's about getting them in their body so that they can complete and come to their own wisdom.
And for those of you who are watching this broadcast, this is exactly why Deidre and I resonate with each other. I keep saying on these broadcasts, if you're going to go to a coach or a counselor and so on, don't go to the one that has the book knowledge. Go to the one that has the life knowledge, because you know that that individual, to get where they are, had to pull themselves out of somewhere. Anybody can go to psych school, to coaching school. Anybody can go there. The individuals that go there and they're in a certain place and come out of it are the individuals that you want to be your coach and so on. And this is why I've asked Deidre to be here with us, because what we are trying to do is highlight the people who are trying to make a difference in the world. And so now, Deidre, let's move on to something a little bit more interesting. You travel a lot. You want to tell us what you're up to?
What I'm up to with traveling?
Yeah, because you're always in another time zone whenever I speak to you.
Yeah, well, I was just in Mexico for a couple months, and I went to Mexico to write a couple of books and just, be, by a beach and be in a spiritual community, which is really nice. And I went to Mexico because my intuition kept saying Mexico, but I didn't want to listen. And then finally, a friend of mine was like, I'm going to Mexico. I'm staying at this author's retreat center, who's my favorite author, James Twyman. And I was like, this is perfect. I'm writing a couple of books. I love it. And then I jumped in and I was in Mexico for a while, but I haven't actually done too much traveling since like the world pandemic. But before the pandemic, I was living out of a small suitcase, traveling to different places around the world, working on bringing my signature experience to different cities. So I love traveling. It's one of my favorite things. But I'm also happy to be back home with my kitty cats and feeling a little bit more grounded, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get you. Which brings us to the topic at hand, losing oneself. So you just described a whole story, your personal story, where it seems you've lost yourself. There are a lot of people who go through life never knowing themselves because it's just safe to not know yourself.
Yeah.
It's actually quite safe. It makes life easy. Some of the cliches I've heard are go with the flow, but they're not talking about energetic flow here. They're talking about whatever life brings me is the direction that I'm going in. And then,
Right.
and I wanna say something to you guys. Only dead fish swim with the tide. Okay, so you could either be a live fish or dead fish, but I can tell you that dead fishes always end up the same place. They die. Their existence is always premature. And in terms of impact, I spoke to a friend of mine 2 days ago. She said she was feeling blah, but she was feeling blah for a whole week. And because I care about this friend of mine, I made the call. I made the call and I said to her, okay, so what's with the blahness? And she said to me, I just feel like I have no purpose, like my life is going nowhere. And I'm like, why is this? You see, this friend of mine has kids, and her life was the children. And now the children don't need her anymore, and she hasn't made significant strides in her own life. Okay. So now she's ready to make those strides because the kids are grown, they're moving on, they're getting married and stuff like that. And she doesn't have the wherewithal, the will to get up and move. So I suppose my first question is probably going to be, how does this process of losing yourself happen? Because I know that when you're growing up, you're a little girl, you're running around the playground and so on, and you're dreaming that you're going to be this person or that person. But one thing that you're not dreaming is you're going to be saddled with 3 kids. There are very few little girls running around the playground right now that are thinking, oh, when I grow up, I just want to be saddled with three little kids and they're going to make them my life. And one day I'm just going to die of a heart attack somewhere or cancer or something. They're not thinking that.
Mhm.
So, Deidre, I wanted to give me a little bit of an anatomy of the mind of the little girl growing up and how it turns into I have no purpose.
Wow. Well, I just love that you are diving right into this. I had a moment when I was young. I was always the girl in my family. I was the youngest of three, so I have two older brothers that I always wanted their attention. I wanted them to be like, see what was going on. I was the entertainer of the family. And I remember this moment, I was like, Mom, Dad, Tyler, John, come see what I can do. And I like brought them all into the backyard. I was so excited to show them what I just learned. It was skip rope. I knew how to skip rope, but I learned the crossover, okay? It was kind of a big deal. So I brought everyone into the backyard. There was a half circle around me, and I was going, going, going. And every time I was about to cross over, I'd look at my brothers and my parents, and then I would mess up. I'm like, doesn't count. Try again, try again. And I did it over and over and over again until eventually I lost my audience because I was too excited to show them that I just kept messing up. I wasn't paying attention. And so what I noticed within my own self as like a young girl who was excited to learn new things and show people and just like really be in my spirit, right, was that when I started to lose my audience and I started to, it's like I started to shift my behavior based on the external world, based on the validation, based on the love I got. So one of the things that happened when I was young was, oh, I wasn't really getting attention for that anymore. I was getting attention for being the best at things like soccer and certain things. So it's like I began to seek validation by achieving goals and doing things. And so when we think of our little girl, there's a spirit, there's a way of being, there's our natural gifts, there's our talents there. And when are the moments in time when you started to lose that sense of self, or you had the belief system, the imprint, the trauma that it wasn't okay to fully be yourself, that you were too much, that what you had to say or do didn't matter. And then going back to those moments in time and asking yourself, well, what was the belief system that I had that came as a result of that situation? I talked about skipping out in my backyard, messing up, and then we're leaving. They're like, okay, Dee. And I'm like, I'm not done. I didn't show you, right? But it's like, okay, the belief system was, well, people don't really care about what I'm excited about. Oh, well, so how is that manifested? Well, I started to do the things that I thought I should do. And so I really do believe, like what I'm sensing potentially from your friend and many of us is that's what has happened. And I know for me in that moment with the skip rope, I really do believe around that time is when I started to shift and start to pay attention to where am I getting love? Where am I getting attention? And so how we lose ourselves is going from the outside in rather than the inside out. And I first want to say it's hard. It's hard, especially in a world of social media and everything else. It's challenging sometimes to feel like, oh, it's inside out. Well, how do we go inside out? Well, it's about asking yourself, well, when did I start to lose myself? What is my true nature? And it comes back to when you were younger, those moments in time. And where am I not allowing myself to be that now? What environments am I in that are not giving me permission, or it's not okay to be who I am? What relationships are saying it's not okay to be who I am? And how can I start to release things? I'm not talking about people being toxic. Everyone just has their own ways of being and dynamics that we build in our relationships. But it's like, what are the environments that I'm in where I feel contractive? What are the relationships that I'm in where I'm not able to fully be myself in? And how can I immerse myself into environments, relationships around people who are aligned with my spirit and my true identity? And through that is where your spirit can be activated and you can have permission to feel safe to be who you actually are. So that's a little bit around like the dynamic of what I'm seeing here.
Understood. And so when this loss of self, because it is a loss of self, and I can't necessarily relate because all my life I've been too busy to lose, right? But that's a kind of loss in and of itself. But I had to check myself a lot of the times. So my story is that I grew up in an environment where we were asked to be better. Okay, so where I grew up, the education system is not like the North American education system, where they try to encourage everyone to win.
Right.
No, it's a straining process to find the top 5% intellectual people. So you were asked to be better from start, okay?
Mm.
And so that drive to try to be better followed me a lot of the times in my life. And I ended up in corporate North America, which is, I can pretty much tell you when I was younger, it was just a speculation. But now I could tell you, a corporate North America can be a very soulless activity. And you know this very well because you have clients who come from corporate North America. Okay, so anything that they tell you is actually true. You are encouraged to be soulless. The empathy and all that stuff is trained out of you in law school and it's trained out of you in business school. Okay, and I had both of these experiences where I did go to business school, I did go to law school as well. And I could pretty much tell you the emphasis is on training a lot of stuff that's out of you, which deals with connectedness to other people. So after many, many years of dealing with corporate and so on, I found myself in an interesting position. Okay, because there's this little voice inside of you that says, "You remember when?" And you remember when becomes louder and louder, right? So if you're like really focused on becoming this or that or this title or that title, that little voice becomes louder and louder and it becomes a nag until you have to do something about it. You have to do something about it because the next step after that is the shell. And I've met many shells in my life. And I say shell, if you've ever met an individual who has lost connection with their body and their soul as well. And there are people that are walking around like that and they love it. They love it because in that state they don't feel. Okay, I have a family member who is a judge. Not good. Not good. I wish there was something that I could say, but eventually I found myself back to where I started from because I grew up in a TM center, right? In a yoga center, a meditation center.
Right.
And so the experience was very, very jarring for me going in and coming out. Okay. You wake up and everything just floods back in, right? You realize that you've been living in a concrete jungle. In my case, it was a concrete snow and high rise jungle, right? And all of a sudden you notice that, oh, there's a sky. And they're like, people here. Because you didn't even notice that there were people around you before, right? So in terms of losing yourself, that's a man and a woman thing. It's not only women who lose themselves in the process, which we're this experience that we're calling life. But now that we know the problem, let's concentrate on some solutions. So for me, I had to hit a wall to understand the things that were important in my life. But for those of us who would rather not hit that wall, because hitting that wall is like hitting a solid brick wall at 100 miles per hour. What would you suggest, Deidre?
Well, I feel like it's so important to definitely get radically honest with yourself. Like, what isn't it? Because there's this thing that many of us do where we settle. You mentioned settling in a different way earlier, where we settle for the 50 or the 60 or the 70%. Maybe it's in a relationship, a career, or anywhere else. And we're like, well, this is just how it is. This is just how it is. And then we kind of sugarcoat or, we kind of avoid what's not working. So the first step of really anything, and this is something that I teach in many of my programs, is radical honesty. Like being honest with yourself. This actually isn't working. This is how I feel. This is, what's going on. The next thing is courage, looking at the areas of your life that need to change, that have to change in order for you to release this feeling of not like giving yourself away, going from the outside in. And then the third step is taking action and showing up for it. And this is where a lot of people struggle because it takes a lot of courage to show up and change something in your life. And for me on my journey, it was getting out of an 8-year relationship where I was married. It was leaving a business behind. It was leaving an identity behind of who people thought I was, which wasn't actually my true identity. So it was a lot of letting go of things that weren't it in order to discover who I actually am. So looking at the areas that in your life that are there, the obligations that feel contracted, that feel I have to, and asking yourself the question, when did I say yes to this? When did I agree to this? And is it actually aligned with how I want to feel and who I want to become on like a feeling level? And if the answer is no, it's having the courage to let that go and doing the hard thing at the beginning, which will take you to the path of least resistance later on, because you can actually move into states of flow because you don't have things weighted on you that are holding you back from just being who you are. Yeah.
Okay, so the experience of losing oneself, it doesn't just happen right away. You don't just realize, oh, I've lost myself. No, right? It's an accumulative process, right? So I'm curious as to how people sleep through this, because the awareness only comes when you're at rock bottom. But while you're in it, it just seems like another day you wake up and you do what you have to do. I have friends who are still in corporate. They live in the financial district in Toronto, and they live in little matchboxes, and I do mean little matchboxes. And it's very necessary. You've been to Toronto, you know what that's like.
Yeah.
Okay, so the financial district, you got these little boxes. So you're in a cubicle at work and you're in a cubicle at home, right? And that cubicle is like, what, 3 grand a month, overpriced, but you're in the heart of the city because you need to get to work on time, right? And so the experience is something like this. You wake up, you get dressed, you take the elevator, find the nearest entrance to the subway. There's no going into the Toronto subway system and coming out feeling particularly clean. We know this. Okay. All right. You take the subway to your job, you come out, you go into that job, you sit in your cubicle, you do what you have to do, you go to meetings and stuff like that. And then you come back out around, your work is supposed to end at 4, but you're going to realistically live there like around 7 o'clock. Then you're going to go down into the subway for the second dose of the subway. And then you're going to go home and you're going to be completely drained. But people don't realize this accumulative effect. So, what needs to happen for them to switch on this awareness that I'm losing myself? Because for myself, when you're in corporate, people like to think of corporate, oh, this is what makes industry run. But the truth of the matter is, there's some dark sides to being in corporate, especially if you have a legal background. And so you lose empathy as well. Okay? So, my question is, what needs to happen in terms of the individual to give them the awareness that, oh, you're not where you're supposed to be?
Good question. Our body is always speaking to us. So if we go back to my story, I was running my business from the outside in. I was the happiest person everyone knew. People were coming to me for advice, and all of the things were happening from the outside in. But on the inside, I was starting to have anxiety attacks every once in a while, even though I was in front of 50 to 100 people a day. Like anxiety, it's like social anxiety attacks, like after. So your body, how is your body speaking to you right now? Stomach pain. Stomach pain is your body not being able to digest things that are going on. So a lot of people who have stomach issues, it's because they can't digest their life, and something's happening that they may have agreed to up here, and that seems right in the outer in world, but from the inner out, your body's saying no. So your body is speaking to you. Pain is trying to get your attention big time. If it's in your back, a lot of it has to do with your subconscious and the past. Something's being triggered. So the number one way to ask yourself, especially if you're in like a cycle like that, is where is your body speaking to you and where are you trying to numb it? That can be pain, that can be discomfort, that can be allergies. I was allergic to most foods. I had all of the things going on, depression. All of these are messages from the soul that are telling you you are not living in alignment with your purpose, and you're not listening to your soul. So that's one of the biggest flags if you have a health condition that you are off path. The next part is do you feel like you're fully expressing all that you are? And if the answer is no, it's not, you're not fully living in your truth and your gifts because you're numbing parts of yourself. And what parts of yourself are you numbing and saying it's not okay to be in this environment or that? That's an act of self-harm. So right there, right away, those are things that are illuminating you're not on path, you are not living in your truth, because your body is speaking to you, and your soul communicates through symptoms. And when you understand the symptoms and the message from the soul based on what's going on, and you listen and honor to that, everything can heal, and that's when your life can change. And that's what happened for me. And then the other things that I mentioned earlier is like trauma and, you know, not settling and letting go of what's in the way, and, being in the right communities and all those things. Those are things that are going to help you. But first you have to understand, like, these are messages that are saying, listen, pay attention. And I know that if I didn't change my life, 6 or 7 years ago, I would have manifested cancer and I would have died. Like, I know that to be true. I also healed all of those diseases within 3 months. I was told I was going to lose all my hair. I didn't. I grew it back. So it's like you can be anything when you actually listen to the soul.
Understood. So there are two things that I want to touch on before we wrap this up. Absolutely. The first thing is, Deidre, I've looked through your entire YouTube channel before I thought about interviewing you. I looked through all the stuff that you've been putting out there and so on. At no point in time during all of this stuff did you advertise yourself as a female leader. And I found that very striking because that would be the low hanging fruit, and you're not going for the low hanging fruit because you were an entrepreneur, you were a business person, and a lot of women would look up to you, but you didn't go that route. That's interesting to me, right? So may I ask why that is? What, you didn't
What do
think I
you
would throw
mean?
you that curveball? I asked the surgical questions. I am going to ask the surgical questions. You didn't.
So,
You never put yourself out there as a feminine leader. You've
oh,
put
a
yourself out.
female leader, like someone who leads women. Is that what you're
Correct.
saying?
You never did. That's
Oh,
interesting.
well, interestingly enough, so when I first started my coaching business 5 years ago, I worked a lot with women, big time. And I do work a lot with women, but I work equally a lot with men. I work a lot with men. So I just haven't branded myself as a female coach, like a coach for women, because I feel like the people that are drawn to me come to me.
That's
But
interesting.
interesting.
But it's very interesting. The reason why I say that's interesting is because you are exactly what a lot of women need as a coach because you've been in the trenches and you've climbed out of the trenches, right?
Mm,
But you don't shout it to the ceiling. And that's very interesting to me. That's very interesting to me, um, because a lot of women have never been an entrepreneur,
mm,
but that doesn't mean that they don't want to or they can't.
mm,
Okay, right?
mm.
But one of the things that I do know about Deidre Sirianni, she is not the cheerleading type. She's the type that will make you get off your ass and do things, which is a good thing. So I'm interested. That was interesting to me. The second thing that I want to touch on, yes, I would. Yes, I went there. I actually did go there. Right.
Oh, that's great.
The second thing that I want to touch on is the concept of this last 2 years have been very hard for people. And the reason why I say that is because what we have seen from the statistics is that more than ever than the last 40, 50 years, women are not wanting to have children. Women have gone into this plateau stage. Men and women, I shouldn't say just women. Men and women have gone into this plateau stage where they're just functioning on survival mode.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah. And this has become a huge problem. It's not a huge problem in terms of the economic situation, but it's a huge problem for the human condition because everybody's in survival mode. They just want to get through this pandemic or whatever else, right? They just want to get to the other side of it. And so what
Mm,
we've seen is that there's a reluctance to enter relationships, to foster relationships, friendships of any kind. Okay? There's a lot of division and a lot of political nonsense, which we don't deal with on the show, right? At
right.
all, right? But what is happening is that the human condition seems to be in a sort of pause. And
Mm,
And one thing that I could tell you about from my training back in the day is that that which does not grow dies. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right? And so what is happening is that people think that we're just in a pause stage, but no, you're actually in a stage where you're actually going backwards. If you're not
Mm-hmm.
moving forwards, you're not standing still. That's not how time works. You're actually
Mm-hmm.
moving backwards. And so people are not getting into relationships. Women are not having children anymore, for sure not. Okay? The abortion rates went through the roof, right? We're looking at Planned Parenthood. The request from Planned Parenthood has almost tripled in the last 2 years and so on. And so people are in a state of, I don't know what to do with myself,
Mm-hmm.
which has compounded the I am losing myself quite a bit because a lot of people were stuck home with their kids, first of all. And so it accentuated that my only purpose is to look after kids. A lot of people were stuck in their jobs. A lot of people were in fear of losing their jobs and so on. And this has increased the stress factor tremendously. What do you say to these people who are in this stuck mode, in this sort of, we're not moving forward? Hopefully, we're not moving backwards, even though we are moving backwards. What do you say to people like that?
What do I say? Well, it's time to wake up to who you're meant to be in the world. And the biggest part is taking action, like doing something you haven't done before, putting yourself in new environments, working with a coach, working with a guide, finding people who are like, I don't want to be in this location anymore and I'm ready to do something differently. Also, whatever your struggle is, whatever your trauma is, whatever's going on, that is your greatest gift when it has been healed, when it has been transformed. So right away, like taking the time, like, okay, I'm feeling stuck, or this has happened to me in the last year or 2 years. Well, what are the gifts from it? How is that making you more resilient? What are the skills that you've learned? How is that making you stronger and building blocks for your future? And if you're ready to get out of your own way and do that inner work, it's about finding the right person to help you do that and investing in yourself, because staying stuck, it's like we're here to fully just go and do and be who we are, and these things get in our way, but it's our choice whether or not we let them stick or not. It's our choice. And every single time I've moved through many different blocks and shifts in my life, I've had to actively choose something different. And so it's about actively choosing a different reality for you and saying yes to possibility rather than what you're familiar with. And that's what it's really all about, is taking action, doing something differently, getting support. That's been the biggest game changer for me. I've worked with so many like coaches, healers, shamans. I've been in that space for the last decade. It's like I couldn't have got to where I am today without asking for support. So don't be shy in asking for support. That's big.
Excellent. All right, I have one last question, and it's a personal question.
Okay.
You had the you had the opportunity to um, retreat into yourself, but you chose to stay in here with us, the humanity, right? And the human condition. You're speaking to me, you're meeting me at conventions, you're speaking to other people, and you're engaging, and you're still in this life and so on. Why did you choose not to retreat and become bitter and sullen in a little enclave somewhere in a cave somewhere? Why did you choose to stay in
Right.
this life?
Why did I choose to stay like in this life? Why am I choosing to show up? Well, I feel like, a lot of people are stuck in their comfort zone, and you think that it's comforting, you think it's this, but it's actually killing you. Like, I would not be alive today if I didn't make those changes. So it's either you show up and you say yes to life, or you slowly die. And for me, I couldn't take it anymore. And so the pain was a lot bigger than what I had to go through in order to come out on the other side. And I know it doesn't have to be hard. And now I just want to show other people, hey, in a short amount of time, you can be here, you can be here, you can be here, because I've been through it, and it's extremely painful to be stuck in it and not to know how to change. So I'm really just committed to helping people because I've been through it, but also the pain was so big, the discomfort. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I think a lot of people are in that space right now. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Well, do you not want to be alive anymore? Is that your choice, or are you choosing to say yes to life? And that takes action, that takes courage, that takes showing up.
Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Deidre Sirianni. Deidre, I need you to tell the audience how to get a hold of you and your websites and your socials, because I'm quite sure a lot of people can benefit from actually just interacting with you.
Absolutely. So my website is radicallyaligned.com. You can engage with me on Instagram. It's I am Deidre Sirianni, so just my full name. And I have a really powerful program that's called Turn Your Light On. It's about waking up to the truth of who you are and who you're meant to be. So if you've lost your center and you're wanting to come back and be in a really powerful community and space, this is a really powerful container for that. And I look forward to connecting with anyone who wants to reach out. I'd love to hear what your biggest takeaway or insight, or what really resonated from this conversation today, or something that you're going through right now that you're looking for support with.
Excellent, and thank you so much. So, guys, once again, just a reminder, at the end of this month, we will be doing a business collaboration. I actually was going to speak to Deidre about that because, yeah, we're doing a business collaboration. It's free to attend, and it's a networking collaboration where we connect you with people who can actually assist you and so on. And yeah, and you get to learn, you get to access the tools that you would not normally have access to, and you get access to resources on the internet for the cheapest prices that we can find, right? We are giving the people who come to this business collaboration a significant advantage over whoever their competition is and so on, in terms of the networking, in terms of the access to resources. And so for UCM, I want to thank Deidre for being here. It's always a pleasure to speak to you, my dear. And I will see you soon.
Thanks for having me.